The 10th generation of the Google Pixel was just introduced at the cringiest Made by Google event so far. Google has evolved from making Pixel phones mainly for Android enthusiasts to offering more mainstream devices, especially since the introduction of the in-house Tensor chip with the Pixel 6. But with a new generation in town, the question rises once again. Is the Pixel 10 truly a 10 out of 10, or is a Pixel 9, Pixel 8, or even a Pixel 7 the smartest buy right now? We'll take a deep dive into the design, display, performance, cameras, and battery of these 4 Pixels to find out. Hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com. There are no huge changes this year, with the Pixel 10 looking very similar to the Pixel 9, while the Pixel 8 and 7 look similar to each other. It's kind of funny though to see that the camera window in the back has been growing with each new generation. All these Pixels have a glossy finish on the back, with Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the 10 and 9, and Victus on the 8 and 7. The frame is made of aluminium and has a matte finish on all of them. One invisible change on the Pixel 10 is the inclusion of Pixel Snap, which makes it magnetically compatible with both Qi 2 and MagSafe accessories. Because of this, the Pixel 10 has become the heaviest of the bunch, tipping the scale at 205 grams. The Pixel 9 weighs 198 grams, the Pixel 8 is interestingly the lightest at 186 grams, and the Pixel 7 weighs 196 grams. All these Pixels come with an IP68 rating, making them dust tight and submersible at up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. So you can technically keep watching TikToks while you're in the shower. Now, let's check out these displays. The Pixel 10, 9, and 7 all come with 6.3-inch OLED panels, while the Pixel 8 has an ever so slightly smaller 6.2-inch OLED display. The Pixel 8 and newer all support 120Hz, whereas the Pixel 7 only supports 90Hz. However, even though we get variable refresh rates in all, they only switch between the maximum Hertz and 60Hz. We threw them under simulated sunlight at over 100,000 lux and measured how bright the screen typically gets using a full white screen. The Pixel 7 reached 1,107 nits, the 8 hit 1,780 nits, the 9 cranked it up to 1,969 nits, and the Pixel 10 hit a super high 2,317 nits, making it the best for outdoor use. We have ultrasonic under-display fingerprint scanners on the Pixel 10 and 9, while the Pixel 8 and 7 use optical scanners, which many users have actually complained about because of its unreliability, especially when using a screen protector. Now, for even more info on screen specs, including our measured peak brightness, feel free to pause the video right here. So while both the Pixel 10 and 9 have the highest quality displays here, the Pixel 10 screen is able to reach around 500 nits more of brightness compared to the 9, making it the best for us. But the screen's not everything, so let's check out the speakers on these phones.
I'm a little too indie.
All these Pixels come with stereo speakers, with one in the earpiece and the other at the bottom, and it might seem like the Pixel 10, 8, and 7 have 2 speakers at the bottom, but one of those grills is actually reserved for the microphone. Now, here's an audio sample for you.
I'm a little too indie. You got my head over my shoes, but I like it. I'm a little too indie. You got me up over the moon, but I like it. I'm counting colors in your eyes. I'm losing track of all my time. It's like I'm high. Tried not to slip into your blue, but I've been slipping into you. The floor is ice.
As you've heard, the Pixel 10 definitely offers a bit more bass compared to the Pixel 9, thanks to an updated earpiece speaker. Both the Pixel 8 and 7 sound much flatter in comparison. By the way, we have noticed that a lot of you are watching our videos, but you're not subscribed yet, so you better make sure that you tap that subscribe button. Oh, and if any of these Pixels have piqued your curiosity, you can also find links to them in the description below. Now, let's check out those cameras. For the main cameras, the base Pixel 10 comes with a new triple camera system for the very first time. However, Google actually downgraded its specs, basically porting the main and ultra-wide cameras straight from the Pixel 9a. Therefore, we have a 48 megapixel shooter on the Pixel 10 and 50 megapixel cameras on the Pixel 9, 8, and 7. In outdoor scenarios, we have really similar results. Only the Pixel 7 shows slightly less vibrant red tones. As for detail, the Pixel 10 does doesn't really look different from the 9 despite its downgraded sensor. Indoors, the Pixel 10 does capture a tiny bit more shadow detail and has a bit less contrast, but the difference with the previous Pixels isn't huge. Moving to the ultra-wide cameras, we have a 13 megapixel camera on the Pixel 10, a big 48 megapixel shooter in the Pixel 9, shared with the Pixel 9 and 10 Pro and Pro XL models, and 12 megapixel cameras on the Pixel 8 and 7. Once again, in terms of color and dynamic range, all Pixels look very similar. This time the Pixel 9's photo does have better detail thanks to that bigger sensor. In scenarios with a very high dynamic range, it's impressive to see all perform pretty well. However, the Pixel 9 and 8 do have the least amount of noise compared to the 10 and 7. Now, portrait mode has been a weakness on Pixel devices for a while, and while we do see an improvement on edge detection, it's still far from what every other competitor is delivering right now. At 2x zoom, still in portrait mode, the Pixel 7 really takes a hit, delivering a super blurry shot with evident over-sharpening. As a note, the Pixel 10 is still not capable of taking portrait shots with the telephoto lens. Moving on to video, with the main cams, you get a maximum of 4K 60fps resolution on all 4 models. As a heads up though, for our comparisons, all our videos with all cameras are captured at 4K 30fps when available. We have to say the Pixel 10 captures more shadow detail compared to the previous models, but at the same time, its video looks a bit flat. And despite constant improvements, all Pixels still have this smoothing effect when there's a lot of movement in the frame. For portrait video, all these Pixels are limited to 1080p 30fps resolution. The edge detection has seen a slight improvement in response time in the Pixel 10, but the overall look is still very similar across all these Pixels. For maximum ultra-wide video resolution, the Pixel 10 is downgraded to 4K 30fps, while the rest can shoot at 4K 60fps. Here you can see the Pixel 7 has the most restrained field of view and also looks much warmer. However, we think all of them could really benefit from a boost in detail, as again, all look very smoothened out. Switching to the front, we have 10.5 megapixel cameras in the Pixel 10, 9, and 8, while the Pixel 7 carries an ever so slightly bigger 10.8 megapixel camera. However, the Pixel 7 lacks the most detail here, making my skin look overly smooth, though as before, colors are really pleasant in all 4 Pixels. In low light, while not perfect, the Pixel 10 is the most correct. The Pixel 9 has an even heavier magenta tint, while the Pixel 8 and 7 have an extremely cold white balance. With this front camera, we have a maximum video resolution of 4K 60fps on all phones. As before, the Pixel 10 has the least amount of contrast, but all of them show a lot of noise in the dark areas, and textures look way too smooth.
So now let's get into it and test the audio coming from all of these devices. I'd like to start off here with the Pixel 7. I'm in a relatively busy area. How am I sounding? How is the sound performing? Moving on, we've got the Pixel 8. Were there any improvements over that year? What do you guys think? How do I sound? Then we're gonna move on to the Pixel 9. Again, some cars, bikes, all that kind of stuff passing by. Can you hear me well? And finally, the latest and greatest Pixel 10. How do I sound over here? Any improvements throughout those years? What do we think? And as always, let's talk about it.
So as you've heard, all phones sound really similar, but for us, the Pixel 9 and 8 cancel out the most amount of noise. However, the Pixel 10 and 7 sound a tiny bit louder and less muffled. Now, as mentioned before, only the Pixel 10 comes with a telephoto lens. This is a 10.8 megapixel camera with 5x optical zoom, borrowed from the Pixel 9 and 10 Pro Fold models. At 5x zoom, the Pixel 10 obviously takes the best shot here, thanks to that new zoom lens. But honestly, the Pixel 9 and 7 also don't look that bad. The Pixel 8, however, is just a blurry mess. At 10x zoom, the Pixel 10 is still the crisper one, while all the others are limited to 8x zoom. The Pixel 10 can zoom up to 20 times, and at this distance, AI assists in generating detail. Now let's switch the lights off and check that low light performance. With the main camera, just as before, the Pixel 10 and 9 have the most correct white balance, but the Pixel 10's photo is a bit over-sharpened, while the Pixel 9 looks more natural. With the ultra-wide cameras, the Pixel 9 definitely stands out as the best. Interestingly, the Pixel 10's photo is the noisiest one. In portrait mode, however, the Pixel 10 does capture the most correct white balance, and edge detection is also superior to the rest, but detail in my black dress is all gone. Now, this is just an example of the benefit of that telephoto lens on the Pixel 10. We think it goes without saying that it looks pretty much the best here. On video, with the main main camera, no video is perfect, but the Pixel 9 does the best job. The Pixel 10, however, loses a ton of texture detail on surfaces like the wooden floor. For ultra-wide video, it's pretty much the same story. The Pixel 9 is definitely not perfect, but from these 4 phones, it's the one we would pick as it's the least pixelated. So, altogether, post-processing hasn't changed a lot in terms of photos, as in daylight, all pixels are pretty much the same. But we do have a slight improvement in portrait mode and white balance accuracy in low light scenarios on the Pixel 10. However, it's also in low light where the Pixel 10 struggles in terms of detail. The Pixel 9's bigger camera is gathering more detail. Now that we're done with cameras, let's check out what's under the hood of these pixels. Here we have the Tensor G5, G4, G3, and G2 respectively. The Tensor G5 has officially become Google's first chip built by TSMC on their latest 3nm process node. For RAM, the Pixel 10 and 9 both get 12GB, while the Pixel 8 and 7 pack 8GB. By the way, the Pixel 10 is exclusively compatible with eSIMs in the States, so if your carrier doesn't support eSIMs, it's time to start looking for another phone. In the rest of the world though, the Pixel 10 supports both Nano SIM and eSIM simultaneously, just like the previous Pixels. For storage, we still get only 2 configurations of either 128GB or 256GB. But to really see what these phones can do, we'll throw them into some real-world testing, starting with gaming. We'll run 30-minute sessions with cooldown time in between. First up, Grid Auto Sport. We tweaked the settings file to unlock 60 FPS in graphics mode since it is capped at 30 by default. The Pixel 8 dropped the most FPS, but the Pixel 10 was actually the worst here, as the game crashed every single time we tried to play it, even with the default 30 FPS setting. Next, we launched Withering Waves and cranked the graphics all the way up. The Pixel 10 showed the best performance here, keeping an acceptable amount of FPS after 30 minutes of gameplay. However, together with the Pixel 9, they were pretty toasty at 49 degrees Celsius. Moving on from gaming, we exported 99 photos in Lightroom. This time around, the Pixel 9 showed the best performance, finishing the rendering in 11 minutes and 29 seconds. Next, we rendered a 3-minute 4K 30 FPS video in CapCut. Here, the Pixel 10 finished the rendering the quickest, but was closely followed by the Pixel 8. But now let's check out some benchmarks. In Geekbench 6, we basically see incremental scores with each newer model, with the Pixel 10 finally breaking the 5,000 point mark in multi-core. In 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme stress test, it's pretty much the same story, with each pixel doing better than the last. Still, scores could be higher though. In Antutu, we got strange results as the Pixel 9 was the best performer, followed by the Pixel 10 and Pixel 7, with the Pixel 8 placing last. And lastly, we ran the cross-platform disk check benchmark to measure read and write speeds. In sequential write, the Pixel 8 was the quickest, but in sequential read and random read-write, the Pixel 7 was the best. In memory copy, the Pixel 10 was the quickest. As a note, our Pixel 10 has UFS 3.1 because of the 128GB storage configuration, just like the Pixel 9, 8, and 7 do in all storage variants. We do finally have UFS 4.0 storage in the Pixel 10, but this is only reserved for the 256GB configuration. So altogether, the Pixel 10 does show an improvement in performance thanks to that new Tensor chipset, but the leap is not really that huge. Plus, if you're a gamer, this chipset is still not gonna rival MediaTek Snapdragon or Apple Silicon. We do hope to see improvements in efficiency in the long run. Now, let's dive into the software side of things. All 4 Pixels are currently running Android 16 with the Pixel UI, but as of right now, only the Pixel 10 has the new Material 3 Expressive interface. For software support, the Pixel 10, 9, and 8 offers 7 years of OS and security updates. The Pixel 7 was originally promised 3 years of support, but Google extended its support to 5 years, meaning it should receive updates until October 2027. For Pixel 10 exclusive features, we have Voice Translate, which translates your speech during calls using your own voice into whatever language the other person is speaking and vice versa. Camera Coach teaches you how to take better photos by offering AI suggestions for framing. Auto Best Take automatically merges the best faces from a burst of group photos into one perfect shot. Daily Hub is a kind of reborn Google Now feed with contextual information about your day. Pixel Journal is, well, an AI-powered journal. And finally, Magic Q suggests replies to messages using using contextual information found in previous messages or emails. As for other shared features, the Pixel 10, 9, and 8 all come with Gemini Nano for on-device AI, which handles things like smart replies in messaging apps. The Pixel 10 and 9 feature the more advanced Gemini Nano with multimodality, which powers call notes to deliver summaries of key points from your calls, like times and dates, for example. It also powers the Pixel Screenshots app to compile summaries about anything you screenshot. The Magic Editor in the Pixel 10 and 9 supports Reimagine to let you totally pimp your shots, but the Pixel 10 exclusively offers Ask Photos, which applies your edits just by asking. However, there are still some great features available in all Pixels, like call screening and Hold for Me in the phone app, the Magic Eraser and Magic Editor in Google Photos, and of course, Gemini and Circle to Search. With all of those AI shenanigans out of the way, let's move on to our last category. Electrifying the Pixel 10 is a new slightly larger 4,970 mAh battery compared to the Pixel 9's 4,700 mAh battery. The Pixel 8 comes with a 4,575 mAh cell, and the Pixel 7 with a 4,355 mAh pack. For wired charging, the Pixel 10 supports up to 30 watts, the Pixel 9 and 8 get 27 watts, and the Pixel 7 tops out at 20 watts. For wireless charging, the Pixel 10 can charge at up to 15 watts, the Pixel 9 can also charge at up to 15 watts, the Pixel 8 to 18 watts, and interestingly, the Pixel 7 up to 20 watts, but these speeds on the last three Pixels are only reachable with the now discontinued Pixel Stand 2. The Pixel 10 sacrifices reverse wireless charging because of the new Qi 2 compatibility, a feature still available in the Pixel 9, 8, and 7. During our performance testing of these devices, the Pixel 10 and 9 sustained the charge much better than the Pixel 8 and 7, which is expected since batteries degrade with time. In our charging test using a 100 watts charger, the Pixel 8 was the first to finish a full charge in 1 hour and 10 minutes, reaching 24 watts. Next was the Pixel 10 at 1 hour and 26 minutes, reaching 26 watts. The Pixel 7 finished in 1 hour and 28 minutes, reaching 20 watts. Last was the Pixel 9 at 1 hour and 30 minutes, reaching 25 watts. Now, as for prices, the Pixel 10 retails for the same price as the Pixel 9 did at launch, $799. At the time of their release, the Pixel 8 retailed for $699 and the Pixel 7 for $599. That's a $200 increase in just 3 years. $200 that you could have used to buy a bunch of Pokemon TCG cards. Nowadays, you can find the Pixel 9 from third-party sellers like Amazon, eBay, or even Swappa for around $600. The Pixel 8 can be found for around $400 and the Pixel 7 for around $300. Just keep in mind you might have to hand out a bit of extra cash to swap in a new battery for those older models. So, at the nexus of these ideas, the new Pixel 10 does come with some neat improvements like a triple camera setup, something the base Galaxy S series has offered since forever. And even though the main and ultra-wide cameras are technically downgraded, the difference isn't really noticeable unless you capture content in extremely dark environments. However, we do think that the Pixel 9 is still the best choice money-wise, as we've seen multiple offers throughout the past year, and the performance of the device is pretty similar to that of the Pixel 10, plus it still has 6 years of software support left. The Pixel 10 really only makes sense if you absolutely need that telephoto lens, or if Pixel Snap is a must-have feature for you. It also only makes sense if you're upgrading from a Pixel 7 or older. Once again, you can find links to all of these Pixel phones in the description below. And before you go scroll through the Netflix catalog for half an hour, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and hit subscribe, as we're always testing new devices to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.